What up, what up, what up, what up, Stewie?
What up, dude? How you be? How you living? What you doing?
And living large. Living large. How about you, my friend?
Good, dude. Good. It's early Sunday morning,
Yeah,
and
buddy.
just excited to talk to you.
Yeah, man. I'm pumped because you gave your lovely wife a staycation, a night away. So what I'm excited for is when your kids come down and they can become part of the interview.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen.
Yeah,
Probably
it's gonna
going to
be
happen.
awesome. It's gonna
Yeah,
be awesome.
yeah, yeah. My wife needed a little getaway. We've been having some rough nights of sleep with the kiddos lately, and she, being the amazing human being that she is normally the one that gets up and takes care of them and puts them back to sleep because they want their mommy, and kind of is natural. And so she needed a little staycation, so I give her a hotel
I
room
th-
for the night so she could go get a good night's sleep in a Marriott.
I think we should start a business where not we surely aren't running it, or we could run it, but we're not going to be responsible for comforting. But we should start a business where people drop their kids off at like a hotel or something, and they leave their kids there, and then they could sleep in their own beds and get some rest.
Get some sleep.
Just be like a pull up drive by, like just a drop off thing, and be like, yeah, I'll see you guys. I don't know. There's like a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day option.
That's called grandparents.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm not ready for that yet. So,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
that's neither. Well, cool,
no.
man. Well, what are we talking about today?
So you and I have recently taken the man. This thing has so many names: the Gallup or the Clifton Strengths, or we'll put a link to the thing that we did, or the things that we've been looking at in our show notes. But specifically, we went through the Clifton Strengths, also known as a Strength Finder, and with the intent of a couple things. So one, I think this all really started with our 6 7 hour Zoom call when we were going through our EOS and VTO. All these are traction terms for those of you that are not familiar with those terms, and kind of realized, hey, we two things. One, we find being self-aware and understanding your strengths as critical, not only to fulfilling your own personal life and achieving your highest and best, but also within the context of a business or any kind of partnership, marriage, whatever it may be. Understanding each other's strengths is also critical, and it helps to not only put the right people in the right place on the bus, but really enables you to drive towards maximizing efficiency, effectiveness, and for us that's of utmost importance, right? Especially with our current situation being time limited. Excuse me. We want to really ensure um, that we're doing things the right way, and then there's a fulfillment piece to it. I get my energy and strength through uh, you know doing the things that come naturally to me, and I think you and I have taken the position that we believe to maximize your strengths is more effective than trying to identify your weaknesses and then work on those, right? um, you and I believe that you hire to those. You either get partners to fulfill to cover those weaknesses, or just not, I wouldn't say coincidentally, but awesomely, you and I are pretty much the opposite when it comes to our key strengths, and so it works out well. So we're going to talk about not only what we've discovered about ourselves, but give you reasons why and practical steps, action items that you can take to do the same thing. Just some recommendations for that.
Yeah, And it's interesting, um, when you're starting a business, especially if you're starting a business with somebody else, with a partner or multiple partners. um, you don't, most people don't really have like a systematized outline of like how to get started. um, you know Even going through like business school and getting your MBA doesn't really teach you how to start a business. And because there's so many different departments within a business, there's so many different things that you got to do within a business. And what David and I have kind of found, naturally, we kind of take over the roles of where our unique strengths lie anyways. And but then there's also things that neither of us really are good at or want to do. And so kind of looking back on where we started and now trying to understand what those strengths really are on paper, and kind of really like diving in and understanding it, learning it. Really, it's interesting to see how those roles kind of played out as we started our business. Like, you start a business and you just go, you just take action, you start doing, and you kind of figure it out as you go, and you just decide to put things in place, and try to systematize it and process it. And we our roles kind of naturally lead to what our strengths help us with. And so it's interesting to take a look at that. This quote that David found, says from Socrates. It says, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." And so, taking the time to really understand what your strengths and weaknesses are, it really, it's an investment. And David and I doing this strengths finder. It costs a little bit of money. It's not very expensive, but I would say it's incredibly worth it. And just reading through and really understanding, what that means, what those unique abilities mean, has been really empowering for us.
Yeah, and I think there's there's potentially a bit of a trap here, right? A lot of folks, when they think about self-awareness, and you think about the time to spend investing in yourself, figuring out who you are and having that validated through something like this test. I think a lot of people think you're living kind of in the clouds. You're spending time. It's not real practical. There's not a lot of action items there, but it's quiet times and meditations and just these things that are very important. But I want to highlight that there are a ton of multiple very practical, action oriented ways to increase your self-awareness. And this is just one example, right? This is one that we've done. And there's others that are out there, and there's free ones, and there's Tony Robbins assessments that we've done. And what I would say is, this one was, I think it was like $50, which I know that initially, I'm sorry, I was a bit hung up on that. And I will tell you that it's, I haven't even thought about it since taking it, because there's so much information. And what's really interesting is, I think before you put pen to paper, you do something like this, an assessment that gives you, kind of spits out characteristics. I know there are a lot of things that maybe because I think I should be a certain way, whether it's influences from, church, community, the Navy, whatever it is. There's certain ways that I think I should be. So like when you did your, I was looking through the different breakouts, and when you did yours, you're more on the executioner side, right? Like you're like that's what you do. And I naturally, wrongly think, okay, I probably should be that too, as a naval officer, as a whatever. But I'm not at all that, which is really funny. And I think when I read through the traits, that the strengths that came out through a test like this, I realize, one, those traits are like the bottom of my list. But two, the ones that are at the top, this test really validated, okay, when I read it, I'm like, yeah, this is really who I am. And sometimes it takes that. It takes you to be able to take a test or look at something on paper that spits out an assessment of who you who you are. And then what's funny about that is you read mine, I read yours, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is totally Stu. Well, you read mine, and you're like, yeah, this is totally Goody. But you saw that and you know that in me, and I maybe didn't because I think I should be different. But once you fully embrace that, it really enables you to, like, I'm super excited about the results from this test.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely pumped about all the information it gives and everything it breaks out for you. And just full disclosure, we're not going to put an affiliate link for the strengths finder test, and we're not making money on this test in any way. We're purely uh, encouraging you to do this for yourselves. But that being said, I'm excited about it because it gives you such a breakout of kind of ways and practical ways to focus on those areas and to maximize your strengths in order to really be your highest and best. And so that's what I love about this, right? That's the kind of the what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I know for me it was very insightful. Did it validate the things that I knew about myself? Yes, but it in a different way. It validated them in a way that got me super excited to focus on those things. And then knowing that you're, having it validate that you're basically um opposite, which we knew physically, right? Like looking at each other, like you're not good looking. Uh, you're kind of I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I mean, people who've seen us know. But the personality and the strengths and our natural God-given gifts and talents, to see on paper that we are totally complementary to one another, is something that, one, I think was God ordained. Like we just got super lucky, because if we're the same, that's problematic in a business.
Yeah.
Or else you're hiring a ton of things out. And and the other side of it is just your own personal self-awareness, I think can really get you excited about some of the strengths that you do have, and to at least understand where you're not as strong. And if you wanted to take the path of working on those things, then you can do that, and it identifies it for you.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you kind of touched on it just a bit already, but, um, I think when there's a partnership, either in business or in life, your spouse, your friends, whatever relationship you have, um, how much better can you work on your being your highest and best if you kind of already know what those strengths are, and then you also know what those strengths are of your partner, of your business partner, your wife, your husband, your well, your kids probably aren't going to take the strengths finder, but they could as they get a little bit older. Um, and then you know where those kind of roles lie, and then you can like kind of team up. Um, there's a section here in this report that talks about how you use these domains, how you use these strengths to really maximize a team, and that's what you are in a relationship. You're a team. And he says that the best teams are made up of individuals who understand their own and their others' unique contribution to that team. This awareness and appreciation empowers the team to be more cohesive, versatile, productive, and engaged. And so, you know, what David and I plan on doing is, we've kind of already looked at this a little bit, but the plan is really to dissect this and figure out what these strengths relate to the tasks inside of a business, and our roles inside of that business, and how to maximize those strengths to then maximize those roles and tasks. And then, the stuff that either we don't enjoy to do, or we're not good at. Fortunately for us, we're like exact opposites. So some of the stuff that I don't enjoy doing, David really does. And so how great is that, where there's something that needs to be done in the business, and David's really good at it and enjoys it, and he can take it and run with it and just like crush it. And then vice versa, there's stuff that I really enjoy doing, and we've kind of naturally taken on some of those roles. But there's things that we can identify to make it even better within our business, and pivot and make our business stronger for it. So you know, I think you want to kind of go over just a few of these strengths and roles, and I think it's super interesting, just to kind of unpack a little bit of that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, let's definitely do that. But before we do that, one of the things that also excites me is, as soon as I did this and was reading through it, and what after I read through yours, I went and I was like, hey, Erica, like I really think you should take this,
Yeah,
because I personally want to know and understand her strengths. Like
yeah,
I as equally as excited as I was about reading my own and really understanding all the breakdown of it, I was also super excited about reading yours and understanding kind of what makes you click, because part of some of my strengths is a natural tendency to want to um, highlight, encourage, and lift others up in ways that are meaningful to them. Like that's just something like where you're some of your strengths are coach jumping in and the natural, like even the way you describe what we're going to do is we're going to get in and dissect and analyze. And I'm like, oh, sounds great. But the for me, like I'm looking at your strengths, I'm like, man, this is what feeds Stu. I'm looking at it, I can see it. So these are ways that one, I can take actions to within our business to enable you to do those things, but I can also encourage you in those things, which to me, encouraging others is a huge part of where I gain a ton of energy. And so if I can see like your strengths, it's not a superficial thing at all. It's I'm already going to do it. Because, and I'm not like patting my back, but for me, a lot of times I'll call you and be like, hey, Stu, man, I think you're freaking awesome and you're a really good friend, or whatever these things that I say that are super genuine, but I have the need to do that to let you know how I feel, right? And I do that with others, and some people get super uncomfortable by it, and
yeah,
it doesn't really matter. Like I'm not bothered by their discomfort, but I guarantee you that not maybe not necessarily with you, but I think with you too, when you hang up that phone and the person at least has the time to think about it, they know in their heart that I love them, right? They know that. And it's not like I don't call the random acquaintance and be like, "Hey, man, I love you, dude." Like it's got to be it has to be genuine. It has to be heartfelt. And those are some of as we go through some of these traits, it talks about those pitfalls, because people like me can sometimes be there's a trap to potentially be superficial and that need to um, highlight others. So, but it breaks that stuff down, right? It helps you understand. So having my wife do it is really helpful. But I'm also excited about, like when you mention our kids, the fact that we take this stuff so seriously. Like I would have loved it growing up if I had been a little more self-aware. And I think enabling our children, or at least making them aware of these types of things, supporting them doing these things, and also from the framework of, hey, I want you to do this because as your daddy, like I want to understand better who you naturally are. I mean, they're gonna have to be a little more mature than um,
6 and 3 year old.
a 4-year old, a 7-year old, and Maya probably at 9 years old is probably mature enough to actually do this. But it'll help us to be better dads, dude. And we want to be better dads, and we want
Yeah,
to be better husbands, and we want to be good partners. And so, being able to look at other people's strengths and then encourage them in that, and even in the household, put them in give them opportunities to thrive and shine in the family unit, the family dynamic based on those strengths. I mean, how awesome is that, dude? Like how awesome it is to be an intentional daddy, husband, business partner, and to enable folks to capture and develop those strengths, I think is huge. So just a couple other things that I'm just really excited about, as you mentioned, our families.
Yeah, man. I mean, and you know, when you like the Strengths Finder report, actually, it kind of, you know, dives into your strengths, but it also tells you, you know, how you succeed in those strengths, but then um, how you can really watch out for blind spots within those strengths. And I would say understanding those blind spots are just as important as understanding, you know, your potential and how to maximize that,
Yep.
especially when you're knowing about, you know, other people's strengths within your relationships. You know, if I know, you know, so my number one strength is achiever, and so you know, overall, like domain, like you said already, I'm an executor. Like executing is my number one overall domain, and you know, so one of the blind spots for achiever, well, achiever is basically I work hard to and possess a great deal of stamina. I take immense satisfaction in being busy and productive. So like, you know, checklist, knocking them out, like doing things, like taking action, like seeing what needs to be done, and then like doing it and like taking action and executing. And that's my number one strength. But not everyone's like that, right? And you know, you're not like that. Uh, I can tell you, my wife's probably not like that. And so naturally, I get frustrated when others don't work as not work as hard, but like they don't have those high expectations for themselves to naturally just knock stuff out and execute like as quickly as possible. And so like I could get really frustrated with my wife when I know there's something that needs to get done that she needs to do and it's not getting done. Like I get I get frustrated by that, right?
Yep.
Same for you. I mean, I love you to death, but there's things that are on our to-do list, and you've been tagged with doing it, and I get super frustrated when it doesn't happen within a
Yeah.
certain expectation of mine, only mine, where I'm like, this needs to get done, and it's not getting done. I get frustrated by it, right? Like that's something that I need to look out for and understand. Um,
Well, it's funny too, because as I was reading through yours, I think what's also important with this or what I've enjoyed is I can think, and that was one that, you know, you just highlighted it, and we didn't talk about this previously, but
yeah,
that was one that I definitely thought about, because some of my strengths, some of the, um you know, to every strength there's a, you know, a downside or a pitfall, and some of the things that I do, some of the more adaptive was pretty high, like where you know, I shift, and focus for me was pretty low, you
like
know,
real low, like
yeah,
real
real
low.
low. And some of these things are, so like where I may be a bit more carefree and the checklist isn't as important, uh, there's potential that I'm also a bit more, they frame it this way, adaptive is one of the traits, and I can very quickly pivot to, okay, something popped up, and I could quickly pivot to that and start dealing with that, and it doesn't cause me stress. I don't get overwhelmed by those types of things. But and not saying that you do, but I think your personality is more like, hey, let's knock this out, okay, done, check, on to the next thing, like crush it, crush it, crush it.
Yeah,
And oftentimes I can just be like, you know, all over. And where it can be a strength, there's also a weakness. So I actually, when I read yours, I specifically thought, I'm like, I know you don't express it that way. Like, you don't, I mean, you don't have to say it. Like again, we're pretty much married, and I can read your tones of voice and your face, but I know that there's a lot of like, I frustrate you in those things, because like, I'm like, I just know this drives Stu nuts. Like, for like the most recent one is sending in that deed. Like, I knew that was driving you nuts. And every day when I look at this probably doesn't bother you as much, but your 7-figure flipping t-shirt that came to my house, like those little things, like I look at those, I'm like, Stu would have already sent that. Like the Exodus Road stuff. Have you
already in the
already
mail.
sent that?
Yeah,
They're already, yeah. See, that would still be sitting in my house.
Yeah, no.
And there's a
Is my 7-figure altitude shirt still at your house?
sorry, you cut out. What was that?
Yeah, is my 7-figure altitude T-shirt that's been sitting in your house for like a month? Is
As
it
a
still
matter
at
of
your house?
fact, as a matter of fact, it's not in my house.
Oh,
It's in my car.
uh, still hasn't been
But
sent though.
just it hasn't been said. No, I
Yeah,
apologize. I will send it this week. And so there's also, as we highlight, there's a bit of irresponsibility there as well that could be a pitfall of mine. But it's just funny to know, like I know, and I've been conscious of it for a long time because I know you so well. But this just validates, like, okay, this is also, there's a why behind why this type of stuff drives Stu nuts. And it's interesting because my for me, top my top trait is communication. And when you break out um the actual the themes, mine is influencing, and yours is executing, right? And you're, when you look at the four themes lined up, so there's executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And obviously everybody has some strengths in each of those. And it's, ours are the basically the lineup of ours is exactly opposite,
yeah,
which again is great. I think that's awesome
great for running a business.
for the business, right? And also good to, you know it, it's good to understand that in just in our daily communications. And I think there, as we said, there's a certain number of elements here. We've known each other for over 20 years, and we kind of know these things about each other. But when it comes down to breaking it down into tasks, super important. And so for me, the communication piece, I think anybody that knows me knows that I love to talk. Always will have a story to tell. Um, I'm not overwhelmed by a room full of people. Like, that energizes me. I'll go up to anybody, start talking to them. Every day at the park, if there's someone new at the park, like, I'm just naturally drawn to go chit chat and start a conversation. But again, some of the drawbacks, right? It is truly an effort, and something I very consciously do is actually shut my mouth and listen. Like, listen to what somebody else has to say. Recognize that your words don't always are not always going to be the catalyst to motivate people to action or whatever it is you're trying to do. And that more than that's going to be required. And sometimes what's required is listening. And so I often think, okay, God gave me two ears and one mouth for a reason. I should use my ears twice as much. But for me, that is not natural. Like, I take great um, effort in almost every conversation I have to be like, okay, stop talking, listen. And I think people think I'm a good listener, some people, and it's not natural for me. So it's something that, but it's important, right? So I think, but again, seeing it broken down, okay, here's the pitfalls. That is a huge pitfall, and being conscious of it is, I think it's such a good tool to have in your toolkit.
Yeah. So the four domains that you kind of talk about, I was just going to read these so people understand. Um, and when if you decide to take your own, for those listening, you'll see it and read it. But if you're just listening to this, um, there's four domains. There's executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. My top domain is executing, like we've already talked about. And it says people with dominant executing themes just make things happen. Like, that's what I do. I take something, I see it needs to get done, and I execute, and I just get after it. Uh, Influencing, which David's top theme is, it says people with dominant influencing theme takes charge, speaks up, and make sure others are heard. So just like David was talking about at the park, like, hey, you're going to go find someone, kind of bring them into your circle naturally, kind of talk to them, and get them, influence people. Relationship building. People with dominant relationship building themes build strong relationships that hold a team together and make it greater than the sum of its parts. I think that was probably your second one, wasn't it, David? Your second kind of overarching theme.
Yes.
Yep. And then strategic thinking. People with dominant strategic thinking themes absorb and analyze information and informs better decisions. So my top two were executing and strategic thinking. David's were influencing and relationship building. So literally, like, they were just opposite of each other.
Well, and
And
even more so, my third one was strategic thinking, which was your second, and then my very last one uh, just happened to be your first one, which is executing.
yeah, yeah. So
Which, to
my,
be honest, I didn't anticipate that. I'll be honest,
no,
I did not anticipate it to be that way, because I think in my mind, um, just in our jobs, being business owners and being naval officers, I think there's a natural tendency for people to be like, "Hey, man, you're the guy that gets stuff done." And but then I think about my who I've surrounded myself with. Like, I think Dave Perez comes to mind. We've had this conversation a number of times, and I think I would guess that he's a lot like you in that
yeah,
way. And he used to work for me, and I always used to say, I'm like, dude, I'm not the guy. Like, I'm not the guy that you're going to give a task to, and I'm gonna be the get it done guy. Like, you're freaking crushing it. Like, that's you. I'm the guy that you're going to give, you know, 10 tasks to, and I'm going to figure out the 10 people that are going to absolutely crush that, and then they're going to crush it, and then we're going to come together. Like, I've always known that's, and I've voiced that before, but this empowers you to really embrace that, because I've always seen that as a slight, to be honest with you. We've had this conversation, him and I in particular, and you and I as well, where I'm like, man, I don't know where I contribute to the team, because I'm not the dude that you're going to give. I'm not the SME. I'm not going to be the SME. I'm not going to be the deal analyzer. And we were
that's
just talking
subject
about,
matter expert for those that don't know.
yeah, subject matter expert. And you and I were talking about this the other day. I'm like, man, I just feel like you're like your plate looks so different than mine, because you're doing these things and you're knocking these checklists out. And I don't know why, but it's just not my, and now I do know why. And I didn't realize it was so low on my list, because I think it's such a valued thing. And to be the guy, like, everyone wants to be the guy or gal. They're like, yeah, you give it to Stu, man, done deal. It's going to get done. It's going to get done well. Like, everybody wants to be that person. It's a lot harder to be like, hey, man, if you want somebody to influence
And
the
talk to you.
process and talk to you, like, David's your guy, right? It doesn't sound as awesome in the context of what we do. Maybe if we were life coaches or something, that might be, or speakers, I don't know. But what's important to that is I did not realize that it was so low on my list, because I think there's also elements of we adapt to becoming the things we need to become. And as naval officers, there are certain things that we have to be. um there's introverts out there that seem like extroverts, because as an officer you have to go talk to people. But it's not where you gain strength, and it's not where you thrive. It's not the natural area that you thrive. And I think seeing it in a breakdown is super important. And for me, it was that aspect was very, very eye opening, to actually have the test tell me, who's completely unbiased, it's my inputs, and the test spits out and be like, yeah, that's not you, dude. That's not you. Embrace it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and things within our business that kind of David takes on and I take on, and that one of the my top strengths is harmony. So my top five are achiever, consistency, learner, harmony, and discipline. And harmony, my number four. It's really funny and interesting that it works out this way, because harmony is, I don't like conflict. I like, kind of everyone to get along. I look for consensus. I want everyone to kind of be on the same page. Well, that's not a very good strength when you're like talking to contractors that have messed up on a job, or you're negotiating on a deal, and people don't see eye to eye on something. um, we've had this before where, like, David and I had to negotiate something in our business, and I kind of took the lead on it, and my negotiating was terrible. Like, I just like gave into the first thing that happened, and like we could have maximized so much more. And it was like a pay thing. Like, there was money involved in this, and I was just like, let's just go with that, because I just wanted to find harmony. But if David would have taken that role, we probably would have been getting paid more now, through him negotiating way better than I. And so David actually is the one that kind of talks to Robin and Gary, and talks to the contractors, and has those harder conversations, where we might have to, like, we've had to fire a couple contractors. We've had some issues come up, and David, like, is just naturally better at it, because I'm not. And so it's it's interesting kind of where that stuff kind of falls in place.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I'm thinking about, I won't specifically talk about the negotiation, but I remember you and I had come to an agreement beforehand on a particular um, uh, thing that we were negotiating for, pricing or whatever. And we, we laid out the plan, and I had a certain idea of what I thought and where we should start. And this one in particular. And Stu is phenomenal at, I mean, this is not like a huge weakness where he, it's not like you're not able to negotiate or give you a price, or even be, very blunt when required, but you don't just draw energy from it. It's not where you want to be
Yeah.
necessarily. It's not that you won't do it. It's not where you want to be. But I remember in this particular one, and this was probably different because these are people we have a relationship with, and we want to continue to have a relationship and all that good stuff. But we had to come to a consensus, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's do this. And then I deferred to you to start the conversation up, and you're like, okay, yep, boom, boom, done. And I was like, so I just
That
at
was
that
what
point
we talked about.
I'm just like kind of shut up and tried to rebound a little bit. And we hung up, and I'm like, Stu, dude, like, we had it laid out. Like, you didn't even talk about what we talked about. Like, what was that? I was like, you know what? How about, it's cool, it's fine. It was no big deal. But it was funny, and for you and I being such good friends, we talked through it. Like, nobody was mad, but I think initially I was a little bit annoyed, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I think this is just probably something that is just a better area for me just to have this conversation, and
Yeah.
it's fine, because it wasn't as high on my list to. I knew that we'd be in harmony. I mean, for me, harmony is like my 21st of 34 traits, so it's pretty, it's
Yeah.
relatively further down. Obviously, it's not my top. Um, but it just is really interesting to see that you don't, if we know this stuff, if we knew this, then it would just be like, it's something that we decided recently. Like, we don't both need to be on calls for certain things. If it's this, I'll take care of this. If it's that, you take care of that. No big deal. And we're just better at it anyways, right? So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
that was a good
Well,
one.
yeah, and we have a lot of conversations with investors, with people we're negotiating deals with, um, and my naturally my kind of top strengths are leaning more towards like coaching and like mentoring, like one on one. I enjoy having one on one conversations with people, and like coaching and like trying to take what I know and teach them. And I see it within our War Room Mastermind group. I naturally will like make little videos and teach someone what we're doing, and then just like send it to the group, and try to help and coach kind of on a one-on-one basis. And then David is like that communicator, kind of group kind of come together, and David more is more like the group speaking, the that kind of stuff. And so you can kind of take that stuff and understand what conversations we need to be having within our businesses. And maybe I take kind of the one-on-one kind of coaching calls, and David takes more of the stuff that naturally he enjoys, gets energy through, and is better at.
Yeah, and the whole point of this is not necessarily to highlight, what Stu and I do, but really the point is we could probably go on for hours talking through these things, and I intend to spend significant time really analyzing mine and taking notes and identifying where pitfalls are that I currently fall into and rectifying those things and maximizing the strengths to help build the business, to make myself a more effective officer, husband, father, all that good stuff, right? But the point is, if you're not doing this type of stuff, this is an action item. This is not head in the clouds type stuff. This is no kidding. Take action, and then you use this information. It's not something that's real pretty and it validates who you think you are and whatever. That's not the intent. You take this thing, you analyze it, you see where you can be more effective in your business, you see where you could be a more effective whatever. And you also, if you're in a partnership, helps you to break those things out, but it also helps you to realize, okay, I need to be in a partnership, or I don't, or I need to hire here, I need to address these issues. I mean, that's what this stuff is good for. It's very, very action oriented, and there's resources potentially required of you to get to, this fine detail of how you can be better at whatever it is you're trying to do. And I think that is really paramount, and you know to help you to not only better yourself, to understand your spouse and your family, to enable them to be their highest and best, because that's important. uh, but really could take you to the next level, right? This type of stuff can really help you to raise your game, and if you know this stuff about your know this stuff about yourself, then it also enables you to take additional actions. And I think that's really the key, right? That's what we're trying to highlight here is man, get out there and do something about it so that you can achieve your highest and best. And it takes me to our next point. Carl Jung said, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. And when I read that, I was like, man, that is really an important quote. I mean, if you go and you look at, type in self-awareness in Google, self-awareness quotes, there's going to be tons of philosophers and people that quotes that pop up on people that spent their dedicated their lives to, philosophizing and deep thinking and
Philosophizing.
philosophizing and strategery and these types of things. And and one of the common themes that almost all of them touch on is this knowing thyself and this internal understanding of who you are. And it's so important to, it's easy to disregard the importance of taking time and doing practical exercises to understand who you are. But I'll tell you, the and what this highlights is it provides clarity on how you most naturally think, you feel, you behave. And it really helps you to understand like the kind of the why behind that, and then the actual steps that you could take to maximize not only the benefit to yourself, but more importantly the benefit to others, and the value that you bring to your community, your family, your community, your church, whatever the things are that are important to you.
Yeah. And I mean, this podcast, like in our intro, it we talk about trying to find our highest and best, and helping others try to find their highest and best. And man, I think that if you don't do this, um, it you're failing yourself. Really, you can truly figure out where you have potential to find your highest and best. Um, I think it's huge, man. But it's not easy. It takes some time. this one costs a little bit of money, but you have to truly be intentional of doing this stuff and digging in, and you might find some stuff that you didn't know, and be like, oh man, this is super interesting.
Yeah,
You
and why
might
not?
find that you have a strength called woo. I mean, who has a strength called woo?
I do. Apparently, it's
Oh,
my second one. I never even. We both, when we first looked at it, were like, "Woo, what is that?" I don't
what
even
is
understand
what
what
is a
that is.
strength called woo? I mean,
Woo, woo is a magical strength,
huh,
and it's only very infrequently used, and
like
there's lots
magical,
of
like
ways you can thrive from it.
unicorns, like
Exactly, unicorns pooping rainbows. Um, no, and really, what woo is, and again, this is it specifically highlights that you love the challenge of meeting new people and winning them over. You derive satisfaction from breaking the ice and making a connection with someone. I mean, dude, that's like,
it's you.
yes. I mean, it's right on, right? Like, yeah, yep. I enjoy that. I enjoy going to the park and seeing new people, and I'll go up and start chit chatting with them. And you
Wooing
can,
them.
and I don't know about wooing them, but yeah, I mean, it's you know, and again, if you know that, right? If you don't put a name to that, then and then immediately my mind goes to, okay, how do we maximize that? Well, you like coaching one on one. I like wooing people apparently. And so if we have limited time and there's a conference and we think there's some really unique and special networking opportunities at this conference, and at the same time there's a chance to whatever develop some aspect of the business and maximize it, and the schedules don't work, well, which one of us should go to the meeting, or which one of us should go to the conference? Or if the resources are somewhat limited and we just don't want to pay for both the tickets or whatever, like I probably should be the guy that goes to the conference.
Yeah.
Or if it's something that's more specific to one-on-one, like a very intentional conference that's based around learning this thing, or even presenting a skill, or diving deep into a specific I can even think about like a CRM that you're going in and uh, teaching somebody how to use it and how it can maximize their business. Like that does not excite me. I'm not gonna lie. Like it doesn't. But I think you're super good at it, and you would do it in a way. And if you look at all the videos, like the on our YouTube page, the analysis videos, or the different videos, that the how tos, like I'm in a grand total of zero of those. Like I don't, it's not, I just don't do them, right. And but it's good to know, like you can get trapped in being like, man, well, maybe I'm just lazy. Like maybe I just don't, I don't think I'm lazy. I mean, I'm up at 4 and my day is full of things that have to get done. And, we're running commands, and then we do this storehouse thing in the middle of our days and after our work, and we come home and we try to be present for our kids and our families. Like, I don't think I'm lazy. Um, so why am I not doing these things that Stu's doing? Well, there's a reason for it, and there's a name you can put to it, and it's not an excuse, but it's a maximization of where we are most talented. And I'll tell you, like I have never. It's so funny because you oftentimes are like, yeah, we should make a video on how to do this and how to do that, and I never once have I been excited about it,
Yeah.
and also never once have I done it. Do I think they're awesome? Absolutely. Do people watch them? Yes. Is there a huge value add? 100%. No argument. I've never said, Stu, I don't think that's a great investment of your time. I've always been like, yes, that's great. You crush that, dude.
Yeah.
You
You
crush
do
that.
that.
It just, but it helps me understand like why that is. It's not a negative. It's just not my jam,
Yeah.
and not where I'm strong. Can I do it? Yes. Could I do it? Yeah. Would I be forcing myself to do it? Yeah. You just seem to love to do it, which is good. That works
Yeah.
for us.
It's interesting that you kind of brought up the conference. I was just thinking about when you and I both went to the best ever conference that was up in Keystone, Colorado last year. And if you think about how you and I both kind of reacted to that conference, where we kind of spent time and where we did, use these strengths and qualities, um, you know, in the conferences, you have these speakers and they're talking on a certain topic, but then there's always like kind of networking groups that are outside of the hall. And what I'm thinking back on is I was kind of naturally the one that was inside listening to the speakers, taking notes, like jotting everything down, like learning. One of my top strengths is learner. I always want to be learning and growing. And I naturally like enjoyed being inside listening to the speaker, while David was naturally more outside at kind of like the networking events in the hall, having coffee and like being around a group of people, pulling people in and networking and talking and having those, engaging relationship building conversations. And that's kind of really where our strengths kind of fall out. And um, that's fantastic when, you know, we're both building a business and David can be building relationships and creating, maybe new partnerships or whatever else. And I'm inside learning strategies and tactics, and then we'll put that all to use and come together. And so it's pretty cool. Like, I think, I don't know, it makes me really excited about, what we can kind of take this stuff and implement it now, knowing, how it all kind of falls out.
I think that's a key too. Is if back then we would have had the self awareness that we have now, I think we could have maximized it better,
Yeah.
right? Like we could have been very intentional. So I'm thinking through like the next conference. Okay, there's a number of people on podcasts here that have their own podcasts that are doing things, and we should try to be very intentional with getting people on our podcast and getting on other podcasts, because we love podcasting, we love being guests, and we love doing it, having guests. But it's also a great way to add value, and people can just click on it, learn stuff, and whatever. And if we would have been intentional, like I would have spent time, talking to, Evan Holiday and Ellis Hammond and these different people that we know that are at this conference, and really trying to be like, okay, let's get this on the calendar. Hey, I'm David. We just naturally connect, whatever, chit chat, talk about things, and because I had some great conversation with those guys, but I was not intentional in it was feeding my you know my personality and who I am, and giving me, like, I left there energized based on those types of things. Um and and it's so funny because I there were often times when I was out there and I was like, oh, Stu's in there taking notes. I got to get in there and like learn some stuff about what we're doing, and or what they're talking about here, and it wasn't the part that I was naturally drawn to, but we were not intentional and strategic about that conference. And
Right.
every conference from here on out, just based on taking this 35-minute thing, this one, you could take a number of them, you could do whatever, just do them
Yeah.
together, and help, and do multiples, right? We've done um,
Disc profile,
the disc profile. I thought the disc
Myers
profile
Briggs.
was good. They're all good, but this one has been my favorite so far,
Yeah.
with just the breakout. I mean, it's 100 pages of reading, between the four different reports they give you, plus a ton of resources on the website. But, and again, it sounds like we're really pimping this thing, but again, I'm just excited about it. Like, I just love the potential to now go forward and be much more intentional with hey, dude, like, this is kind of my jam. Like, I'll be outside, you take notes, we'll reconvene after, we'll talk tonight, we'll kind of figure it out, and then go from there. And when I think of a conference, I think you and I think of it differently. Like, you even brought it up. You're like, hey man, we should do one of these conferences. I want to do this year is very specific on learning a thing. And I'm like, man, I just want to be around people, dude. Like, I
Yeah.
just want COVID to be kind of wrapped up, under control, whatever is the next step. And I just want to be around people that are like minded, because there's good conversations there. They're at the conference for a reason. They love real estate or whatever it is we're doing. They're there for a reason. But like, I'm excited about that part of it. Like, hey, let's get to know some people, and get max benefit. And my conversations are also different. And so I think there's, knowing that can make us a lot more effective. And that's really another huge point. And really, if these these established frameworks are out there. This is an established framework to spit out a report, right? The disc profile an established framework. There's a lot of frameworks. People spend a lot of time and money and intellectual resources to develop these things. We're just simply saying that you need to get out there and do them, and it will really help you to intentionally develop and utilize those natural talents to make things happen. And whether that make things happen is like Stu and executing and actually making things happen and getting things done, or it's a trajectory of your business because you have now reached out to the right people who believe in who you are, and they're going to resource you or whatever that looks like. Who knows what it looks like for you is going to be unique, but it helps you to make things happen. It helps you to influence others, and that's not manipulate, that's influence others and add value, and to build relationships, which is always important, whether you're a harmony guy or a communication woo guy or gal, or a consistency person. Like, it's always important to continue to build those relationships, and then ultimately achieve your purpose. If you understand your strengths, you understand how God made you, there's a reason for that, and there's a lot of resources for that as well, um, to understand that purpose. But if you know who you are, then you can get after your purpose, and you will absolutely feel way more fulfilled and achieve a purpose that you were put here to achieve. And I firmly believe that. So why not use these frameworks to help you understand that better?
Yeah, man, it's good stuff. Think think we got our point across. You think so?
I think so. And I'll just finally say, tie to that quote. I mean, what's better and more powerful than the idea of waking up every morning and being fully awake and fully aware, and attacking the every single day in the context of that, right? Um, and man, and is it easy? I found another quote, dude, that I just got to share that I thought was awesome, and it was Benjamin Franklin, and he has a couple quotes. I love his um, "Early bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, wise." I love that quote. I'll
Yeah.
always run that through my head. But he also said, "There are three things extremely hard: steal a diamond and to know oneself." And Benjamin Franklin, I don't know, he's pretty cool dude, right? Like
Pretty smart
I
dude.
mean, he said a few things that people listen to, and did a few things in his life that are extremely significant. And I think he knew who he was, and it enabled him to do that, empowered him to do that. And it's not easy, but 100% worth it, right?
Yeah,
So,
agree, man. Socrates says the unexamined life is not worth living.
hey, and those are some strong words,
Yeah.
and and I have to say that I agree 100%. Um, a lot of people, you look around, and a lot of people are floating, and it's sad to see, right? And then they get themselves in situations that are either regrettable, or if they just would have taken some time to understand who they are and what makes them tick and their purpose, they just would never have been in that situation in the first place. And those that are fully aware of who they are and their purpose, man, like, you want to be around those people. They're full of energy, they're crushing it. They may not be like you, but they know who they are, and to add tremendous human life value. And they're just the people that you want to be around. And I strive to be that, to be that kind of guy, right? To be the kind of guy that, not to feed my ego in any way, but that people are like, man, Goody knows exactly what he wants. He's maximizing his giving. He's living his purpose, and his purpose is to, his outward focused, and Stu and David have a platform of leadership and giving, and that's what they love, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, man.
How sweet would that be, man? We shouldn't have to tell people what it's about.
It's good stuff, dude. Well, I think as both, I'm really the action taker, but David is too. But we encourage everyone else to take some action and be intentional here. And if it's not the Clifton Strengths Finder, it's Disc Profiles, Myers Briggs, it's whatever that looks like for you. Choose something, dig in, and try to help understand who you are internally, and then use that to find that highest and best. So we'll put a link to the Clifton Strengths Finder, because that's what we're talking about here in the show notes. Again, like David said, there's no affiliate link, or we're not making money off of this. We just really loved it. Our friend Scott Mackus from the Service Academy Business Mastermind, who we interviewed earlier in our podcast show, he kind of led us to it. It's awesome. And go take a look. If you want to spend the $50 and take this test, I think it takes like 30 minutes. But then there's hours of enjoyment and reading afterwards, and reflection that you can take from it. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, buddy.
What you
Good
got?
stuff.
You want to woo anybody? You want to woo anybody before we get off of this show?
I want to woo you, Stu. Wow, woo you, Stu.
Oh,
Yeah,
poet
good.
and didn't even know it.
Poet and didn't even know.
Hey, so speaking
poet
of,
was my third. I don't know. Poet's
no,
not on there.
No,
it's not on there.
No. We the podcast before this, if you haven't listened to it, with Mina and Mary, also some huge intentionality in that one, and some action steps. So do both of this stuff. Go take the Clifton Strengths Finder, and then take action and put some processes and some systems in place, and kind of planning your day. They hooked us up with a great discount on a lot of their stuff. We'll put also that on the show notes again. But yeah, I think that's it, man. It's good stuff.
Yeah, dude. Go take action. Do something about it, and no excuses.
Execute and woo. Execute and woo.
Execute, communicate, woo.
Woo.
All right, you're dumb.
All right.
We always have to, at least some point in the show, say something that then I have to say that you're dumb, so people always remember. Was dumb on us? Was that has to be a strength of yours?
Not a strength.
It's not. Oh, okay. Awesome.
No.
All right, my man. It's fun.
It was fun. Go subscribe to this podcast. Leave a 5-star review. We would thoroughly appreciate that. You can give David a 5-star review too. He deserves it every now and then.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Thanks for throwing a dog a bone. Appreciate that.
You're welcome, friend. You're welcome, friend. And most importantly, let's go fill your storehouse.
Make it a great day, friends.
See ya.
See.